Hi, my name is Heather Ridge, and I'm a horticulturist here in Boulder, Colorado, where we often get really early first frosts. If you've spent a lot of time taking care of your garden this summer, getting one of those sudden snap freezes can be really disappointing. So I wanted to show you a few tips to help for those hard as well as soft frosts in order to protect your garden and make sure that you can continue your growing season once it warms up again. In a soft frost, so something right around 32 degrees or a little less, as long as it's not terribly sustained, most folks know that covering your garden with just a simple cover, such as a tarp or a sheet or even a blanket, can do. So just covering your crops can help keep that heat inside, especially if it's been a nice hot day up until then. Using the structures that already exist, like tomato cages, or you can be creative with your lawn furniture or even wooden sticks and spikes. You're basically making a fort out of your garden. So bring the kids in to help. You want to make sure that the cover goes all the way to the ground and you've actually tucked it in a bit, because sometimes with that colder weather we can also get some changes in wind. So doing your best to cover everything all the way to the ground, and you can weight it down with a rock or stake. Keep in mind that some plants need more protection than others. So if you're in a hurry or you don't have a lot of coverage, look at things that are warm season crops. For example, your tomatoes and peppers and other Solanaceae family members, or any of your squashes such as cucumbers, melons, any squash, pumpkins, things like that. Those are your crops that won't like having even the slightest bit of cold temperatures. A lot of your perennials and shrubs should be fine. Most of your perennial herbs will as well, but basil you might want to harvest and cover as much as you can. And hopefully it'll come back out and leaf out again. For a soft freeze, that's really all you need to do. But our temperatures are predicted on Tuesday to drop well down into the 20s and stay there for several hours. So along with covering, you might want to use a couple of other techniques to bring as much heat as you can into and around your plants. Using heated rocks, so if I have rocks that I could put in my fireplace or boil on the stove or even just leave out in a sunny spot or on a black surface like the road, and then bring in and nestle underneath. Or even using water as a sink. So for example, if you have plastic milk jugs or really anything that you can use to create as much water storage as you can in a transparent container, putting that under there as well is another great way, because it's going to release some of that heat energy as the night goes on. Christmas lights, particularly the old kind, so the kind that have the great big colorful bulbs, are another way to add a little bit of extra protection for that cold night. And these are great because they're already meant to be outdoors, particularly those large ones that we used to use. They give off a lot of heat. Try to avoid LEDs. LEDs aren't usually going to be putting out any kind of real heat energy. So stringing these along and underneath and around the base of the plant close to the ground are a good way to kind of keep that warm temperature where you need it, and it'll rise as long as you have it covered. Some folks have suggested using heated blankets, electric blankets, but most are not made by the manufacturer for outdoor use. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. If you do, make sure you use the kind that are on a timer, or use a safety timer where it's coming on maybe once every hour or two for 10 minutes. And of course, cover that with some kind of tarp. But again, those are usually not made for outdoor use the way that Christmas lights are. If you've got a few tender perennials or other shrubs or individual crops that can fit under a bucket, this isn't a bad way either to also make sure they get as much protection as possible, and weighting it down in order to keep it from blowing over is one technique also. So here in Colorado, we've got to make sure that we can get our little guys through really cold nights. And now that it's September, if they can make it through the next 24 hours, I know that I'm going to have another few weeks of crops to harvest and enjoy. Good luck and stay warm.